The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. We're at the end of another season. We're talking about season 3, ending things up right now. It is the Sandy and Toddcast, and this time it's kind of a mishmash of potpourri, kind of mixed bag of stuff again.
Sort of just talking about a lot of different things, random things that I guess came to me and things that have happened over the past few weeks. And so I thought, this would be a good time to kind of wrap up the season, the sort of themed woo-woo season, if you will, with just some odds and ends of stuff.
All right, season 3, episode 16 starts in a bit. It's called Grand Finale, and it's next on the Sandy and Toddcast.
Crowds, arguments, loud noises, narcissists, energy vampires. Does that seem scary to you? It can to an empath. Sandy and Todd from the Sandy and Toddcast invite you to join them for a new podcast, the Empathicary Podcast. These two empaths know exactly what it's like, and they'd like to share their stories, knowledge, and ideas with you. Dive deep into the world of the empath. The Empathicary Podcast with Sandy and Todd. Find it anywhere you find your podcasts and like them on Facebook.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day, all while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
We're naming this one Grand Finale. It is the end of season 3. For whatever reason, seasons 1 and 2 seem to go by much quicker. Season 3 seems to have dragged on forever.
Not in a bad way, but you're right. Season 3 started, I don't know, like in August, I think it was. And it did. It just seemed to last forever and ever. And nothing bad happened. Nothing, we didn't have to stop the season, put it on hold, nothing, but it just seemed to be really super long.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with it. I mean, it was a good season and everything, but I was I've been just sitting back going, can this thing end anytime soon?
It did seem, one difference was that we actually made a calendar, a Google calendar, and we scheduled our live casts and we scheduled our guests and we, instead of flying by the,
seat of our pants.
Seat of our pants, we really concentrated on it. And I wonder if that made a difference. It just kind of made us way more conscious of how much we have going on. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Yeah, it was that. And I think too, with the holidays around the corner and the end of the year and all that kind of stuff, it's a busy time in our industries. Because it's Christmas and people are trying to get stuff done before the new year and all that. So I think life was a little busy. I think that for whatever reason, you and I have both been experiencing a little bit of depression and anxiety. Well, you've been anxious about pretty much anything. The woman is anxious about a toenail at this point. That's how anxious she is. She's anxious about everything.
I'm better now. But I mean, I had so many things coming up at the same time, big things, stressful things. I had the threat of grand jury duty. Now, I work from home, and a lot of people think when you work from home that it's so laid back and you can do whatever you want.
I'd love to work from home. I could see myself sitting on the couch enjoying a lovely cup of... Yeah, it doesn't work that way. In fact, it's just the opposite.
It's not. And I do, ironically, I do audio editing and production for podcasts. I do a few other kinds of projects too, but primarily podcasts. And it has been insanely busy for at least a month and a half, 2 months now. It's usually busy, but it has been insanely busy. And so I've been really having a hard time trying to balance everything. because I got the grand jury scare, which I thought, oh my goodness, for 2 months, I'm going to have to either go 1 day a week or 2 days a week. It alternates for 2 months on top of all of my doctor's appointments and things I have going on. Everybody knows by now about my eye injections. And I was just panicking. And then to top it all off, I went for my yearly routine mammogram. And of course, they find something new, which turned out to be what they say is probably benign, meaning they're just going to monitor it. I have to go back in 6 months to make sure everything's still the same. But, all that together, anxious ain't the word for it, Todd. So I was a hot mess.
I want to explain what I'm doing during all this anxiety, okay? So do you know the meme? It's got Kermit the Frog, and he's got a glass. He's got a cup of Lipton tea.
Yes.
That's what I was doing through all this. I was just sitting back, letting it happen, sipping my tea a little bit, fully knowing that it was all going to be great. I knew that you were not going to have to do jury. I knew that the lump was going to be nothing. And I knew that the eyes were going to be, in fact, much better this time than they were the first time. So I just knew. I'm
glad you knew. I'm glad you knew.
Well, you knew too. You asked the same questions and got the same responses I got. You just were not confident in your knowledge.
Well, it's funny because, and I really want to talk about the pendulum this episode too, for a few reasons. But I have started to really rely on it more for a few reasons, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But I luckily did get through it okay, and everything was okay. And I'm going to put it on record right here. I won't get too mushy, but I am so eternally grateful to you for being there for me. You truly are my best friend. And look, he's doing Kermit the Frog thing.
I have green tea in here right now. So I'm just going to, as you're doing this, I'm just going to.
You're so going to get it.
Just
But, when you're living it yourself, it is kind of hard. So I got through it. The worst thing that's going to happen to me in the next couple of months now, knock on wood, before my next eye injections, is I have to go renew my license at the DMV.
Does everybody have to do that this year or something? Because I've got to do that too. That's weird.
It's every, I think, 10 years.
Well, see, but here's the thing. It hasn't been 10 years for me. And that's why I think it's odd.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It has not been 10 years for me. It might be coming up on 10 years, but it's not quite 10 years. And I don't know if it's because they have to get the new licenses with the new ID crap. I don't know.
I know they go by your birthday. So even if you got it in, say, December, I think you get cheated out of a year because they go by your birthday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to do that too.
So yeah, I got to do that. My birthday is in February like yours. So I got to do that in January. And then next week I have a periodontal appointment, which she digs to China. But otherwise, everything's pretty smooth right now.
So here's the other thing. Like, we both have to do the car thing and the license thing. I am not even thinking about it. It's not even on my radar. It's sitting on my fridge. I've got it up with a magnet, and that's where it will sit till one day I go, oh, you know what? I need to take care of this, and then I'll deal with it. I won't even think about it till then. That's the difference between you and I.
You know what's so funny, though, is that this time I was like, fuck it. I threw it over on the side of my desk, and I said, they can wait until February 5th, the day before my birthday. I'm like, I have so many other things going on. I was like, I am not going to worry about this right now.
Good for you. I'm proud of you.
I know. Thank you. I'm learning slowly but surely. So, yeah, so everything's good right now. We're gearing up for, obviously, season 4. That'll start in January, early January. And this season 4, we're going to start doing maybe some theme ideas. And we've been talking about working on the theme of paranormal, the paranormal world, and also cryptozoology, which is so fascinating, and I'm very fascinated by it. And so I'm hoping that we can get some really cool guests and maybe do some really cool, reviews of shows and things like that about those topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be a really interesting season. And of course, January is coming up on our 1-year anniversary of doing the Sandy and Toddcast.
I would love, I think a great idea, and I'm just throwing this out there just off the top of my head, but I think we should do watch parties right here, and we should get episodes of some stuff, some ghost stuff, whatever, watch it, and then talk about it as we watch it.
I love that. Do you remember years ago, Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking of.
Mystery Science Theater 3000?
3000. Or maybe it was 2000 for a while.
Maybe.
And then when we hit 2000, then I think it changed to 3000.
Because we're going back quite a ways.
Yeah.
Several years. And I used to love that show. And I thought it was hilarious. It was just it was stupid, but it was so stupid it was funny. And I think it might be a really cool concept. So maybe we can work something like that out. I think it would be great.
I was just checking to see if it was 2000 before it was 3000, but I can't find out fast enough. So
I don't know. I remember 3000, but it very much could have been.
It very well probably was. I just remember. It's always been Mystery Science Theater 3000. I remember Conan O'Brien doing a bit called "In the Year 2000." And then then they would hold flashlights under their chin, right? And then they would like.
I remember that. I remember the Mystery Science Theater was the guy.
Yeah.
And then there was a robot, and there was like one other.
It was a robot, but it was made out of a gumball machine. One was a gumball machine. The other one had a bowling pin for a face that was cut in half because they were made out of cheap stuff.
It's right. Do you think that we might be able to get Drew Glazier from Dudes with Brews on a Porch to come in and like dress like one of them?
I don't know.
He's usually up for most things.
I was just chatting with him this morning. He's putting together a holiday podcast himself, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit because there's so much that he's really trying to do theater of the mind with this one, and so there's a lot of work involved with it. So he's freaking out a little bit. So,
is that the one? I think that's the one he mentioned before to us, like around Halloween. I think that's very cool. Yeah. What a great concept. We love Drew and Dudes with Brews on a Porch. So everybody go follow him, download, subscribe like you do with us, and check it out because he's really funny. And he's one of my favorite people because he's just so laid back and easygoing, and he's fun.
Well, and he's a very kind individual. I mean, everybody's got their bad points and nastiness and all that kind of stuff, but he's just a really, really nice guy, and he's very creative and, the kind of people we like to hang with.
That's right. Amen.
And occasionally he'll buy a round, which is also nice.
I think he bought one for us when we were out in September.
I'm sure he did.
When we were out at that place, which I really liked, by the way. So hopefully in June when we come out again, we'll be able to all get together and do one of the nights. We're actually staying longer this time. So maybe one of the nights we can all get together.
And here's the other thing. Again, we're talking about her visiting in June. So when she mentions it, it's almost like the first time she mentions it because I don't think about it at all. And so just out of the blue, she go, well, I can't wait till we come out in June. And they'll be like, oh, that's right. They're coming out in June. And like 5 minutes later, I've got plans for June. Can we do this? Can we go bungee jumping? Can we go ziplining? I'm like,
Have
no.
you ever been to Friar Tuck's?
Yeah, right.
You're like, why?
And I'm thinking, what is she up to? I mean, are you already planning like restaurants and stuff like that or what?
No, I was actually on my hotel app for where we're staying, and they're like, oh, we have all these recommendations for you at Oshkosh. So I was just checking them out because I was there, and it said Friar Tuck's, and I'm like, I think we had a Friar Tuck's around our area one time many, 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 many years ago. So that's why I was like, have you ever been there? So,
oh, yeah. Ate at Friar Tuck's a lot of times.
I said, why not?
Yeah. So everything is like, oh, I just can't wait. It's like X number of weeks till June. It's like, what?
Listen, I'm a planner. I'm a researcher and a planner. Always have been, always will be. What did I tell you last night? I messaged you and said, because he's going to try and come out here in the spring, which will be amazing. And
but that'll be a very quick trip. That'll be like fly out on a Friday and come back on a Monday or something,
Yeah, which would be easy, cool. Plenty of time.
If COVID hasn't killed everything off again.
Huh?
If COVID hasn't killed everything off again.
Listen, don't say that because I'm so over it right now. I'm about as boosted as I can possibly be.
You are.
I know. Well, you are too.
Well, not quite, But yeah, I mean, still.
Well, you're getting there. And so I'm not going near people really. So,
Meh.
but anyways, so yeah, so we have a lot to plan for the first half of this year. I'm excited about it. So
Fucking planning.
Bleh.
Fucking
Anyways,
planning.
all right, let's talk about something really cool. Let's talk about an investigation that our group did, which you are now part of. Congratulations, by the way. The Fort Schuyler Paranormal Society. You couldn't make it out, obviously, for this investigation, but hopefully for one in the spring. And we did a church, an Episcopalian church. And it was built in the 1830s. This is, of course, off the top of my head. It was built in the 1830s, actually started being used in the 1850s, and is probably going to be closed for lack of participation, which is a real shame because it's an absolutely gorgeous church. And more so than just the investigation, some pretty cool things happen there that are not something that I've necessarily experienced before in an investigation. I tried a couple of new techniques that I never did before. I had some interesting things happen, things that kind of reminded me of like the TV show Paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
That I thought was interesting. So it's a beautiful church. You walk in and the sanctuary, the church itself is absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful Tiffany stained windows. One of the huge old pulpits that's, humongous and absolutely gorgeous. And you just feel at peace there. Just feel at peace. But then there were some other sections of the church that were very interesting. The second floor was an area where the nursery was there. I think a lot of the daycare, some of the offices were traveling ministers or priests would stay up there. It was very female oriented. And as well, there was a lot of female energy up there on the second floor. And one of the rooms, the nursery, the man who showed us around actually said that he's a little sensitive. He's heard from time to time children's voices, babies crying, children's voices. It was the nursery. They call it the library because there's books in there, but it was the nursery. So then on the third floor, you have some rooms and everything looks kind of, I guess you could say it's almost like a little maze. Like there's a lot of small rooms and closets throughout it. And the third floor just felt a little different, a little heavier. And especially this was interesting, especially going into one room, in the threshold of the room, in the door, Todd, it felt really strange. Like I got this immense feeling of like fear as I was walking through the threshold into this room. And as it turns out, this room was actually one of the latest additions to the church. And it's just a very odd feeling up there. So that's sort of the layout of the church. There's also an area right outside of the main part of the church where the acolytes, now again, this is Episcopalian, the acolytes carry the big, huge, I don't know what they're called, the cross and the snuffers. And as they go down, it's the equivalent of like, I was born and pretty much raised Catholic early in my life. Sort of like the altar boys, same idea, the acolytes. Mm-hmm. And they would walk down the middle of the aisle to with the priest and everything. And they were all hanging in this little area on this wall. And I had my meter with me. And this was very interesting. As we were doing the walkthrough, I had my meter. And as I'd get close to them and touch them, the reading on the meter, the EMF reading, would raise. And as I backed away, it would go back down. As I got closer, now it is an old church, but the wiring, in theory, the wiring, any of it, should stay pretty stable of a reading. It shouldn't fluctuate too much. It shouldn't, spike. It shouldn't. And that bears saying that all throughout the entire church, as I was walking around, especially on the staircases, I was getting huge spikes. And I wasn't near anything that would have been wiring. So it was really interesting. But I was down there, and every time I touch the pieces, and they were heavy, or go near them at all, it would spike. Like we're talking, 1.8, 2.2, nothing in the 50s like I've gotten in certain things before, but certainly not anything to sneeze at. And it also happened when I was touching some of the robes as well. When I opened a drawer filled with scarves and things, it would spike. Anything having to do with the acolytes, with the priests, the ministers. As you can tell, I'm not really that versed on Episcopalian, but anytime I would touch stuff. So I thought that was interesting. So on we go to the investigation. And first we go upstairs and we go to the second floor. And I said, I want to go in the nursery. I'm drawn to the nursery. And we sat down, and there were some toys in there and some cups. And we started to just ask some questions. And all of a sudden I started picking up on this energy of, it was a young girl. It was a female girl. And of course I'm sort of making this shorter, but the name Maggie came to me. So we're sitting there and I'm making little cup things. I'm trying, and my EMF is definitely fluctuating. At one point I was asking her questions, and the EMF was fluctuating in response to my questions. So I thought that was extremely interesting. And then I got the idea, for some reason, I brought my pendulum with me that night. I brought my pendulum with me that night. I thought, okay, if Maggie, and Dennis said to me, how old do you think she's under 10? I said, yeah, probably about 7 or 8. And I could picture her in my mind. I said, maybe if she can't do a lot of stuff, we had the REM pod with us and things like that. I thought, let me see if I can use the pendulum as a tool to communicate with this young girl. And sure enough, I got the pendulum out. I started working with the pendulum, and the answers were flowing freely. Yes, no, everything that I asked her, she responded with yes, no. It was pretty amazing. Dave actually got video of it.
I'd love to see that. That'd be cool.
I'm gonna send it to you. It was really cool. And I think that after that, and this is why I'm starting to really rely on the pendulum more, because when I was so anxious with everything going on, and you did it and I did it, and we got the same answers, and I've asked other questions before that have been correct. And after my full interaction with what we assume to be a little girl, I really feel like the pendulum, there really truly is something to it. And I am naturally somewhat skeptical, even though I am a medium, and even though I have experienced some things that not many people experience, I still remain skeptical to a certain extent. And I thought that this kind of solidifies the fact that maybe the pendulum, there really is something to this. And since then, I've used it quite a bit and tried to get a real true connection and a real feeling with my pendulum. So that, you sort of have to form kind of a relationship with it.
Yeah, I would. That's a good word to use.
Yeah, and you have to understand it and work with it really well. Now, you've used the pendulum, right?
A little bit. I mean, I'm not somebody who picks it up every day. And as you know, I had problems with getting the pendulum that I was using to respond to me, and so I finally found one in an old pocket watch that seems to work for me. And so my pendulum's a little different, but it seems to work for me. And I typically don't ask questions for myself necessarily. I typically ask for other people, but it's always been pretty spot on for me.
I know. And it's really weird. And I never in a million years, I don't think I've ever seen it being used on a TV show. I don't know what made me kind of think to bring it that night and use it. But I'm really super glad I did, because it really, I think, did form that relationship now, because it was so personal and so like right on.
I've seen it used one time when it was actually on the Ghost Brothers. I've seen it used one time there. And, I think maybe the reason why it's not used is the reason why even we question it is like, is this real? Is that person moving it? You know, unless it's in your hand, unless you're the one who has control over the pendulum.
Right.
I think it's hard to be a believable factor in investigating. So while you've got the hits on the Mel meter and maybe you've got some spikes on a K2, maybe you get some audio on an EVP or something like that. I think it's an additional tool, as you just mentioned, on a personal level. You know, it's a personal level tool, just like you feeling cold spots, you feeling energy, that kind of stuff. It's a personal level kind of bit of stuff. And so maybe that's why we don't see much of that on TV. You know?
Right. I totally agree with you. And I think that TV shows tend to want to stay with the scientific stuff a lot more. Unless
even if they're not scientific, you know.
Right. You know, even the, you know, unless you're Dead Files, which primarily is based around mediumship, psychic, I think that they tend to stay away from that. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But I'm sort of open-minded enough that I think that we should be using every tool that we have to sort of find the answer. As I've matured in this journey, I've sort of realized that it's not just about, let's prove that it's real scientifically. And, you know, I've sort of taken that really personal approach to it and thought of it as, I want to try to understand who's here and what's going on here and how I can help in that.
Yeah, I want to make it my personal experience. You know, I'm not doing it to prove it. I'm not doing it anymore to show, hey, here's a haunted location, whatever. I want to go. I want to experience it in my way and know in my mind what my thoughts are on the situation. You know, I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah, it's not the thrill seeking like it was, I think, in the beginning when it was all so new and exciting. To actually be going on investigations, it was really exciting and thrilling. Now I look at it more as a different approach. Now it's more like, how can I help? How can I understand? What can I do? And a lot of people, and I get the whole pendulum thing because like I said, I've been skeptical to some extent all along, but I think that it's a lot like the Ouija board, of which I am certainly not a fan at all, and will never use it again. But by the same token, I think, you know, the old joke, you're moving it, you're pushing it. But when you hold the pendulum in your hand and you know you're steady and you feel the movement of it, you know that even if your hand is moving a little bit or shaky, it's not going to cause the pendulum momentum to swing that wide. Or, you know, it's a different feeling. It's sort of like when I feel energy and I feel it right up next to me and it's cold. It's not like I'm going outside and it's cold. It's a bone chilling cold. It's a different kind of cold that I feel. And that's not something that you can measure. It's not something scientifically that you can prove, but it's just your own personal feelings. And I think this is along the same lines. You know when it's moving because of you, and you know when it's moving not because of you.
So let me ask you this. This is kind of playing devil's advocate again. For those people, and I'm a firm believer, don't mess with Ouija boards. I just think they're, you know, it's more trouble than it's worth playing around with. Could the same thing be said for the pendulum? Because you're still touching that unit. The energy is still coming through you. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think it all depends on setting your intentions beforehand. I think it all is, when I go into any investigation, I say an opening prayer. And I call on St. Michael, the Archangel, to help protect us, to keep us safe. I call upon God to help protect us, to keep us safe. And I take it very seriously. I don't, a lot of people think of the Ouija board as a game or a thrill-seeking type of thing. And I had a personal experience with it 30 years ago, and it scared me. It truly scared me, and it made me realize that I have to be very careful with the things that I do. And so I am very careful with the pendulum. I call on St. Michael. And a lot of times, I've actually used the pendulum to confirm. I was told by Gina Koch that a lot of souls are drawn to me and are always around me because of the fact that I can personally help cross them over. I was in an investigation in October, and I truly think that and we actually have a picture that kind of is weird that goes along with it. Yeah. But I actually crossed a soul over. And so since then, I've called on St. Michael a few times, and I've used my pendulum to say, are there souls here that need my help to help cross over? And it says yes. And I've called on St. Michael to protect me. And when I use this, I feel like St. Michael is there. And I've asked him to help them cross over and then close everything when they've crossed through. And then I'll ask my pendulum again, are there any souls left that need to be crossed over? And it immediately says no. And those are the kind of things I feel protected. I think it's setting an intention of not being a thrill seeker and taking it seriously and, asking for that protection.
Poor St. Michael. Everybody's calling on St. Michael like every minute of the day.
He's a busy dude, I'm telling you.
You see this?
I love that. This
cool. Is for my pendulum.
Yep.
I haven't used it yet, but it is very cool.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. That's sort of like the star, and it has all the different answers, yes, no. Mm-hmm. There's some even more intricate ones out there because I've looked at them myself. I'm very basic. I just do it over my hand. But there's some interesting thing. I love that. There's some interesting things about pendulums. A lot of people say that it's your subconscious, that it's your intuition. You know the answer.
That's kind of how I feel about it. I feel like it's an answer we already know, and this just helps validate it. That's the way I look at it.
I go along those lines. I also think I don't know how people would feel about this, but I also think that my spirit team actually works with me on it. And I think that, they help me to open my third eye, to be intuitive and to understand. You don't have to be a medium to be able to use the pendulum. I don't want people to think that you do. But I think that they work with me to sort of elevate it and help me with it. I really do. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is it's your intuition. You're picking up on what the true answer is. And don't forget, pendulums, yes or no answers. You can't leave open-ended questions. You can't throw them out there. You have to be very clear and concise about your question. I've actually asked sort of weird open-ended questions just to see what it would do. And it basically just doesn't really move. It won't answer the question. So you really have to be specific in what you ask it. And one other thing that I've learned now is that you should cleanse it. And a lot of people get intricate with it. You can literally take your pendulum and put it under running water for like 2 or 3 minutes, and that will cleanse it. And it'll take all the gunk and all the questions that you've asked it already, cleanse it out, clear it, and then you can start fresh with your questions.
Last night was a full moon, and I wanted to get my crystals out. I forgot to do that, and my pendulum, because my pendulum is a watch, so I don't want to run it underwater, obviously.
Right,
so I thought,
but there's other stuff you can do.
Yeah.
You can put it out under the full moon, outside.
I know. That's what I was saying. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. You can, what else can you do? You can put it with sage. You can cleanse it with sage or Palo Santo. You can just put it outside in the air.
I have started burning Palo Santo a lot. Mm-hmm. Like a lot.
Yeah.
I've got some in the studio now. And now I've got some next to my bed where I've moved some of my crystals upstairs in my bed and have a few in the studio so that I'm protected at night.
I love it. It's different. I know you had a few kind of shadow people.
Yeah.
So that should help immensely. And Palo Santo, a lot of people just know about sage, but there are other things that I have some too. And there are other things that you can use. And it would be really cool. Maybe I'll put up a link to the different ways to cleanse in our show notes for this week for everybody. But so it was an interesting way of investigating something I'd never thought to try before. And I'm all about trying new things. I have a REM pod, I have a Mel meter, I have, my standby, my digital recorder. But I think, as always, everybody's heard me say this a million times, I don't think it's just scientific stuff that you should rely on. And I don't think it's just personal experiences you should rely on. I think what makes for a good investigation and understanding what's going on is by using both. And so I've been trying. I actually bought a little cat toy for one investigation we did last summer, a little cat toy, a ball that when you roll it, it lights up. And I thought at the time, this would be great for children, for reports of children in certain places. And I didn't think to bring it upstairs with me because I was using the pendulum at the investigation that we did. But I'm always trying something new. We were at a library, and what did I do? I brought a call bell just to see if anything would happen, trigger objects. So I always like trying new things, and it doesn't have to cost $300, $500, $600
right,
like some of them. It can cost $3.99, and you can get some really cool stuff. So that was one thing that happened during the investigation. And I highly recommend that if you are interested in a pendulum, it's fine to go on Amazon. I got mine on Amazon, but even then, purchase something that calls to you. If you like certain crystals, find one that's made out of the crystal that you like or a color that you like. Go with what calls to you, even if it's on Amazon or an online website. Mm-hmm. Go with what calls to you because that's super, super important.
And if you want more information on using a pendulum, you can listen to a podcast that we did this season with my sister, Vicki. And she kind of goes through the process of finding one, using it, all that kind of stuff.
That was incredible. So I highly recommend that too, because Vicki was amazing. And I credit her with getting me started on the pendulum because I didn't really know anything about pendulums until then. And it was really exciting to listen to her tell us the things that we should and shouldn't do, how we should find one, how we should use it. So yeah, definitely check that one out. The other cool thing that happened at the investigation was that, remember when I told you about those, that equipment that I don't know what to call them, that the acolytes carry that was in that little hallway in the sanctuary?
Yeah.
I did something that I have seen a few times on paranormal shows before. I went back down and same thing was happening to me again. And I felt like whoever was there did not want me to touch those. Just did not want me to touch anything having to do with male-oriented equipment, robes, scarves, dresser, anything. Just didn't want me to. So what I did was I bargained with them. I said to them, if you can take this number on my Mel meter, if you can take this number on my Mel meter and you can raise this number to 1.0, because it was fluctuating around 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 0.2, 0.4, but it was going back and forth all over the place. Then it would spike to 1.8, but then it would go back down again. And I said, if you can get it to a steady 1.0 for me, I will back away. I will not touch these anymore. Nothing at all will get touched. And wouldn't you know that it actually did go up? It steadily climbed to a 1.0 and it stayed there at a 1.0 for quite a while. And so I kept my promise. I said, okay, I'm not going to touch these anymore. I'm done. As bad as I wanted to pick the one that had the cross up because it was so beautiful, I really wanted to pick it up. It weighed a ton. I said, okay, I'm not going to do it. You kept your end of the deal. I'm keeping my end of the deal. I am done touching any of the male-oriented things in this area. And I stopped. But I thought it was very interesting because I've seen bargaining done on some of the shows before. You know, if you do this or you do that, that shows me that you don't want me to be here. I'll leave. And then when it happens, they leave out of respect. That's what I did. And I thought it was very interesting, something I've never encountered before, something I never tried before. And what I do think is that I did look it up in the Episcopalian religion that traditionally acolytes are male. Now, it's changed, I guess, a little bit in recent years that females are allowed to be them. But my thought is because of the age of the church, that it probably was a male and an older male from an older time who was not very happy at the fact that I, a female, was actually touching, playing with, going through robes and adornments and all of that kind of stuff, just did not want me touching him.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Something different.
What if it was God? What if God was just ticked off that you were there playing around with his stuff?
Hey, listen, I don't think God would care. I do think, however, that maybe a grumpy old minister, maybe
Sandy,
from the 18...
leave the stuff alone.
Probably.
This is God.
But I did leave it alone. So, but those are two cool things that happened. I thought it was really neat. And the other thing let's talk about is crystals, because when we had Yvette on a few weeks ago, she talked about the certain crystals. We had her on our After the Live cast, our special content that's only available to our Stay Weirdos group members. And she talked about some of the most important crystals that you should have. And one of them was rose quartz. And believe it or not, I have a lot of crystals. I didn't have rose quartz.
Yeah, I don't have any either.
So Dave had to do a radio remote, weirdly enough, like the next week in the store that sold crystals. And he said, do you want anything? And I said, yeah, ask if they have rose quartz. And sure enough, he got me a rose quartz, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a rough rose quartz and it's huge. And I've been using it with my my clear quartz, which is actually tumbled and smooth, and using them together. And it really, I feel like it really does promote like an inner peace and an inner healing. It immediately started to calm me down when I would hold on to it. So I just thought that was interesting. I just thought I'd throw that out there because crystals, I believe crystals really do work and they do help. And Yvette said that the rose quartz actually helps with your healing. And it actually did calm me down through some of my anxiety at the tail end of it. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Maybe look into some crystals.
If it had the ability to do that, everybody should buy some right now.
Listen, I don't know if it works for everybody, but I know that the clear quartz actually helps to amplify it. Clear quartz helps to amplify crystals. So I use the two of them together.
Gotcha.
And I always carry a clear quartz with me and a black tourmaline with me when I go on investigations, because the black tourmaline helps dispel negative energy. And of course, the clear quartz helps to amplify that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I do want to mention that if you want to check out the previous podcast with my sister, they are episode 3.4 and 3.5 called Middle Child Powers Activate Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah. Yeah, really great episode. We have a really cool live cast. If you are an audio cast listener and you haven't checked out our live casts yet, our Facebook page, the Sandy and Toddcast, please go over and check it out. It's super cool. And you can find all of our live casts there, all of our audio episodes. And you can also join our group, Stay Weirdos, Friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. We have about 220 members there, and we're all pretty close-knit, and we all laugh and joke and ask good questions and serious questions and just have a really good time. It's a safe space.
And if you want to check out the Yvette episode, that is 3.14, Yvette rocks, as in crystals. Speaking of our Stay Weirdos, one of the members of that group, his name is Justin, is going to be a guest on our program, hopefully for season 4. And he, the reason why I want to talk to him is because he had his spiritual awakening in a very interesting way, where he was in a very bad car accident. And apparently, according to him, he passed away and came back. Wow. And so he's going to tell us his life-altering story about why he, and now very, very heavy empath. Yeah. Very, just has a lot of stuff going on in his life. And so he's going to be sharing that, which is, really one of the reasons why we have the podcast, is to tell other people's stories. Right.
Yeah. And it's really important, I think, that we're able to have a space to share our stories. You don't want to feel alone. You don't want to feel like you're the only person going through something. It's hard to feel like you're alone and isolated from everything. And Justin's a good guy, and he is very active.
He's in Facebook jail again, though. But other than that,
I wondered why I hadn't seen him in a little bit.
Yeah, he. And the thing is, we should have did some sort of poll on it, made some money off the thing, did some sort of gambling on the side. How soon before Justin loses his license on Facebook again? But
I know that would be great. Maybe we should do something like that. Do a pool for charity. The charity of his choice. We'll see how close he comes to it. But he's a good guy, and he's very active in the group when he's not in Facebook jail. And and so I'm really looking forward to talking to him about this. And if anybody else has any stories that they want to share, you don't have to be on the live cast. You don't have to be live on video. You're more than welcome to call in and talk to us that way. We have so many options available for that. Don't feel like you have to be on video or show everybody what you look like, and right.
You could type us a letter, and that would be fine. We can read it, or you can send us recorded audio on your phone, on your voice recorder, or whatever you want to do. That works too.
Exactly. And our email is thesandyandtoddcast@gmail.com. Email us with anything, questions, comments, stories that you have. We've actually gotten a few stories through our email. We just want to be able to share and let everybody know that you are not alone. As weird as you may think you are, there's plenty of other weirdos out there who are going through probably very similar, if not the same thing that you are right now. So
I have a quick story, and it has to do with, we were talking earlier about mental health and all that kind of stuff. And you and I, as we mentioned, have been going through this this down period, this dark period for whatever reason. I'm not sure exactly what the hell's going on with it. But one of the things that I do when I get in those times is I stress eat. So I have been in this very heavy stress eat mode, which for me is not necessarily sugary things or anything like that. I like carbs and salty and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I am somewhat allergic to grains, so I have to be very careful that I don't overdo it. I can usually get away with it, but if I have a day where maybe I have some rice and then I do like tostada chips or something like that, I can have skin issues.
Right.
So I was really doing it pretty heavy on the rice, which is, typically you think of pretty, harmless food to have. And so I've been having a lot of skin issues and allergy issues and all that. And I've put some weight back on, and all that kind of stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not way back to where I was by any means. No. So I've decided to really work on that. And so I'm going to start exercising.
Oh.
And right?
Okay.
And so I did like a beginner's course today. Now I used to do the gym. I used to be in relatively good shape. The problem with that is for me, I will never be an extremely healthy, like buff, ripped kind of person because that is not my lifestyle.
Right.
I'm going to eat and I'm not going to, I'm not going to spend 2 hours in a gym every flipping day. It's not going to happen.
No. So
at any rate, I did my first workout today.
And what did you do?
It was about 10 minutes long.
Okay.
And so I joined this Planet Fitness app.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to be using the Weight Watchers thing along with this. And they have videos and stuff like that on there where you can, do these workouts and you choose beginner level and intermediate and whatever. So I chose beginners and stuff like that. Now, listen, for a while, I was pretty buff. I had pretty big arms at one time in my life and all that kind of stuff. And then being sick this year didn't help. I lost a lot of muscle mass and all that kind of stuff. Right. So at any rate, I'm like, well, I'll do this. I wish they had something that's, like 20 minutes long. I can either do 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or I can do like 45. And I don't want to do the 45. I would rather do 20, but okay, I'll do this 10.
Okay. All right.
Shit, I didn't make it 5 minutes. And all it was some squats and a few, twists and moves, which, I was in swing choir in high school. I don't know how the hell I did a kickball change, sachet, rock, or whatever the fuck that was. I can't follow this. But I was so freaking sore afterward. 5 minutes.
It does that too.
And I was like, my legs were all wobbly and shit. And I was going up and down the stairs in the basement. And I'm like, if I don't hang on to something, I'm going to fall over. So I am really at rock bottom right now, trying to, move in that direction.
Here's my thing. Okay. I'm going to be 51. You're already 51. We're not spring chickens anymore. And so I've sort of, my whole life, I just wanted to be thin. My whole life. And I've never been thin.
Right.
And my mother, now when I was little, I was tiny. And you've seen I have very tiny wrists, very tiny ankles, small features. And not that I'm immensely overweight now. I think I'm at a comfortable place now.
Right.
But I've always strived to be thin. And after I got sick in 2012, I was scared for my life because I was going to die. And so I went on almost like this crash, no carbs and blah, 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 blah. And I lost a lot of weight, and I lost a lot of weight quickly. And I almost became obsessed with, okay, I've lost 10 pounds. Now I got to lose 15 pounds, then 20 pounds,
I get in that mindset too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I lost I would say about 50 pounds. Okay. But I lost it too quickly because what happened was I lost muscle mass and I gave myself a gallstone, a huge gallstone, bigger gallstone than that my doctor's ever seen, which knock on wood, thank God today it doesn't bother me. But anyway.
So you have one? You have a gallstone?
Yeah. And
it doesn't bother you?
No.
I'm going to stress you out. Wait till it starts bothering you.
Well, a couple times I had some idea that it may have moved a little bit and shifted. Remember I told you I was having that weird feeling? It almost was like gas, but I wasn't.
That's what it was. Weird. It was your gallbladder.
Probably. But I only had maybe 2 of those.
Yeah.
And it only lasted about 2 minutes. So.
Shit, that's nothing. Wait till it lasts a day.
Well, and my doctor says until it actually is something that is like that, there's really not too much. They're not going to just take my gallbladder out because I had a 2-minute attack. It's just not going to happen. Especially now with COVID. They're not doing anything they don't have to do. So anyways, one thing I learned though, Todd, is that cardio is more effective than probably any squats you could do or anything. Cardio, I got myself a treadmill. And I would do, a half a mile on the treadmill twice a day. And that combined with, the Weight Watchers type eating, cutting down on my carbs and stuff, it really makes it that much easier. And you don't have to kill yourself.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't necessarily want to lose the weight. I just want to have, some stability in my body and stuff like that.
Right.
So And one person will say, do cardio. The other person will say, don't do cardio, do weight training. That will help. And it's like, okay, where do I go? So,
but you can do both because I've done both.
Yeah.
You just do your weights. You have weights. So do your weights a little bit, but make sure that
listen
you're
to
moving
me. Listen to this. She's
too.
sitting here giving me advice on working out and stuff.
Seriously. But that's
the woman who freaks out because I can't. Oh, man, you need to have a good old gallbladder attack. Those are the fucking best.
I haven't had one in probably 2 years now. But anyways.
But you also don't eat a lot of heavy, fatty foods,
No, I eat mostly vegetables and lean chicken or lean meat. That's what I eat. I don't eat much fatty stuff.
Yeah.
So that's probably what's gotten me through the last, 9 years is that I don't eat a lot of that stuff. Fried foods. I don't eat a lot of fried foods, stuff like that. So.
The first one I had, I thought it was, I like you said, you thought it was stomach problems, whatever, gas or whatever. You're like, why can't I belch this out?
Mm-hmm.
And then after the second one, you're like, what the heck's going on? Do I have food poisoning? I want to puke, but I don't have to puke. And then you start doing some reading and you're like, my back hurts. Oh, that's interesting. Ooh, it's really tender under my rib cage. And then you find out it's a gallbladder problem. And then all you want is to have that son of a bitch ripped out.
I know. It is. I will say it's the weirdest feeling. Like both times that I had it, I woke up in the middle of the night with it.
Yep.
And I literally I couldn't just sit there. I had to walk around a little bit.
Yep.
And maybe I jarred it out of the space it was in. And then I started to feel better. It lasted maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. And but it was like a really weird, uncomfortable feeling.
And basically what the doctor told me is that's when the duct gets plugged with the stone or stones or whatever you've got, and the bile starts building up in the gallbladder.
Yeah. And you know what's really bad is you don't even really need a gallbladder.
I know.
Why the freak do we have
Some people do. Some people have it removed and they have problems from it. But
my mother had hers removed.
Yeah. I'm glad that mine's gone. So
I'm sure. Well, you know what? Every day is a gift. I'll just take anything I can get at this point. Until they tell me I'm going to take my gallbladder out, I'm not getting anything more taken out.
Are you going to start worrying about it now, though?
No.
As I sip my tea, are you going to start worrying about it?
No, at least I don't have anything right now to worry about. The funny thing was when I told you I have to go back for my 6-month mammo 2 days after we get back from Oshkosh, you're like, oh, great. Now you're going to be nuts the whole time.
Yep.
I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
no,
you will. You'll be like,
okay.
oh, my God, I'm going to have a mammogram in 2 days.
Mammograms are nothing. It was just the idea of what it could be. But I feel better now knowing that they don't really think it's anything.
Well,
so.
I have to. Here's a prime example. I have to have a colonoscopy after the first of the year.
Ugh.
I am not worried about it.
I'm not really.
The thing I worry about the most is the prep, having to drink that crap and shit your brains out and all that kind of stuff.
I've been through like 3 of them with Dave, and he doesn't really have Dave never has a hard time with anything.
Well, that's
sometimes I want to punch him because he never has a hard time with anything.
That's why he's still with you. Be happy, because if he had a hard time with anything, you would not be in his life. Trust me.
Probably not.
He'd be so far down the fucking road, driving really fast away.
No, but my doctor has kind of like hinted at me that I should be getting one, but I probably I think I have to see her in February. She'll probably bring it up again. But she told me last time, they're literally scheduling like a year out because they're so far behind.
Yeah.
So I won't have to worry about it right away anyways. But
you'll just have all that time to worry about it. So, all right.
All right. We've rambled on enough about our health issues and our gallbladders.
I'm on this medication. It makes my wee hurt,
But honestly, I think you look great. So don't stress too much. I was stress eating for a while. I gained like 3 pounds. 1 week. Well, I take that back. Like 1.5 weeks of just going back to eating normal again and not all that extra crap.
Yeah.
And I was back down to where, and I'm happy, right? I'm fine. I know I'll never be a size, I'm a size 12, 14 right now. I'll never be a size 6, but it's okay. I don't care.
Yeah. It's not, and again, it's not that I want to lose weight to be thin. I just want to have a little bit of, I want some balance in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's
it's a good
what I want.
idea. And I'm feeling actually better now than I have in a long, long time. So I feel like I'm kind of there. It's
I wish you could see how fucked in the head she was prior to
I was scared.
Oh my God.
I was really scared. It was like everything came down on me at once, Todd. It sucked. It's like I can handle one thing at a time, not 12 things at once. And we're going through this depression, this low phase where everything was multiplied by 10. It was like crazy.
Poor Dave.
The life of an empath. I know.
And now welcome to the podcast called Poor Dave. That'll be our third podcast. We'll do the empathic area. We'll do this one. And we'll do one called Poor Dave.
Poor Dave. I know. Poor Dave.
We'll make it like a game show. I have to guess why poor Dave this week, and then he comes on and tells whether or not that's the case.
I'm so proud of him, too, for being a part of our paranormal group. And boy, he gets into it. He does everything he's supposed to. And he was a big, big, full-on skeptic for a long time when we first got together. And he's really changed much over the years, especially with me, with my journey and everything. He's really changed. So.
You know, what's his choice?
He doesn't have a choice. I'm the boss.
Obviously.
That's why he's painting the kitchen right now while we're doing the podcast.
That poor man. Poor Dave. See, I'm so right about this. Okay.
I know.
Join us.
You two are like twins. You guys are so alike in a lot of ways.
He has way more patience. He has way more patience.
No, you don't have as much patience with me, but you have a lot of patience with me, though.
You would end up in the hospital if we were married. I can tell you that right
We would never. Do you remember what I told you way in the beginning of the podcast? I said, we could never date. We couldn't. We are so perfect this way that I think if we were to ever date, it would just completely ruin everything.
I'd commit suicide. Let me just say that.
I probably would too.
On the first date.
I probably would
right
too.
Right at the table. Wrist
See, guys,
slit.
proof that men and women can be BFFs without killing each other. But maybe sometimes relationships on the romantic side aren't really made for them. So.
Stay Weirdos, friends of the Sandy and Toddcast. Join us there. Make sure and give us a review on any of the platforms that you listen. If you're enjoying this, listen back to our past episodes. It goes back 3 seasons. Enjoy it. We've got season 4 on the way. And if you're reviewing now, that just gives you a head start to possibly win some prizes once we get into season 4. We'll have more details on that very soon. So
yes, lots of fun stuff coming up for season 4, especially in January. Again, we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary, so we have some cool stuff that's going to come your way. And make sure that you subscribe, because subscribing is just as important as reviewing. When you subscribe to our podcast, no matter what platform you're on, they automatically come up for you. So you don't have to miss any of our episodes. They're always there for you. And I love that idea. I subscribe to a ton of podcasts.
And it's really important on Facebook to subscribe to our live casts and all that kind of stuff, because again, then when we set one up there and you know it's coming up, you will get a notification that says, hey, Sandy and Todd will have a live cast coming up on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. So make sure and do that too. All right. I'm going to say goodbye. Have a happy 2021, a safe new year. We'll see you on the other side of that. Plus, we'll have some little bits and bobs between now and then. Right.
That's right. Some bonus episodes coming up. So thank you, everyone, for all of your support the past year. We will see you next year. Remember in school you used to say that? See you next year at the end of, at the beginning of Christmas break.
That's so cute.
We used to think it was hilarious when we were kids. Anyways, thank you guys for all your support and love. We love you back.
Bye.
And happy holidays.
Did you were going to say happy Easter? Bye.
Bye.